I'm starting to realize that all the truths that I may have ever needed, I've already learned. All of the insights that will guide me through my life, I've already come to accept. The thing is, I've just overlooked so many of them. And one of them is a quote by Marcus Aurelius saying, "Life is but what we deem it to be." Now, the version or the translation of Meditations that I read doesn't translate it like this. It translates it as life is opinion, which is also profound, but I like the former statement a little more. And let me elaborate on what that means. Because life truly is what we deem it to be. Your mind colors events. Nothing in this external world is good nor bad. And I think Shakespeare said the most simply profound and profoundly simple thing any human's ever said. And it's that things are neither good nor bad. Thinking makes them so. And it's such a profound observation, and it's so true. The fact that I'm running late for work is not good, and it's not bad. Now, most people will probably put this in the bad category, but someone who, for some reason, doesn't care about their job or knows they'll get away with it and they won't have to make up time at the end of the day, or someone who will make up time at the end of the day, but they were able to have more time that morning with their family or with something that they actually wanted to do, they will consider that to be a good thing that they are late for work because they had extra time to partake in a different activity. So therefore, that situation is subjective. It's neither good, it's neither bad. It is what you deem it to be. And that is what life is. Another profound maxim, if you will, is from Viktor Frankl, which is the meaning of life is to give life meaning. And these are all things that I heard, and when I first heard them, they hit me. But I think in the age we live in nowadays, we don't stick with things very long. You hear something like one of the three quotes or maxims I just said, and you think, wow, that's profound. And then you watch the rest of this video and you forget. And then you go on your life, and then maybe a couple months later, maybe weeks, maybe years, you hear it again and you think, oh yeah, that's profound. Like, I need to remember that. And then you forget it again because of information overload. We don't sit and digest anything. No one reads a book and writes an essay on the book. But why not? If you read a book you really just enjoyed and you got a lot out of it, why would you not contemplate the things you want to take out of that book with you? And why not reread books? I've reread Marcus Aurelius' Meditations like 5 times. And I believe I've gained immense wisdom, knowledge, guidance on how to live life properly from each of those readings. Each one, I was at a different point in my life. I was a different person. So the words hit me in a different way. And I noticed things in my fifth read that I didn't notice in my first read. And I probably should have spent more time my first few reads really digesting Meditations, because that is a book that is not meant to be read in a day and then put on a shelf and never touched again. It is a book of quotes and maxims and proverbs that need to be dwelled on, that need to be really digested and implemented into one's life. And I would say the same thing with other people like Epictetus. Epictetus says something along the very same lines as Shakespeare, saying, "It is not things that upset us, but our judgments of things." And you can hear that, and you can accept that, and you can lose that, and you can go about the rest of your life with forgetting how that can make your life better. Because going around in your daily life believing that this external world can touch you leaves you susceptible to damage, to pain. But you don't need to be susceptible to these things, because as Marcus Aurelius says, they can't touch the soul. The external world cannot touch the soul. Only the brain, only the soul can. Only how you interpret the world can affect that, and that is within your control. But I don't think people really grasp, and maybe you listening to this don't grasp how crazy that is. Because that means anytime you've ever felt sad, anytime you've ever been lonely, you've been depressed, you've been anxious, that was your own doing. How you were interpreting the world and your situation in that moment led you to obtain those feelings. And maybe they just arose, because feelings do just arise. But you sitting there lamenting and dwelling on them, that is up to you. You can get a wave of loneliness. You can get a wave of sadness. You can get a wave of excitement. All these things. But what keeps them around or lets them go is your brain, is your mind. You can easily cast off emotions if you just don't react on them. But you need immense control and power over oneself. That is why conquering oneself is the most valuable endeavor anyone can go on. Proverbs in the Bible says to conquer one's emotions, how much better than a city? Meaning that, obviously, it's better to conquer your emotions than it is to conquer a city. How many people have conquered cities? Far more than people who have conquered their minds. More people have acquired material possessions in vast quantities than people who have acquired control over their minds, over their impressions, And it's crazy to me that we live in a world nowadays that doesn't value these things. And I think the people who do value these things don't digest these things enough. They don't sit with any of this. They don't sit with anything that touches their soul. They let it touch their soul and they let it leave so quickly instead of asking why that spoke to me so much. Marcus Aurelius also says that you have power over your mind, not externals. Realize this, and you will find strength. I mean, time and time again, Marcus Aurelius talks about how you must master the mind. And I think another thing people waste so much time on nowadays is focusing on things outside of their control. So many people ruminate, dwell, lament, whatever you will, on things outside of their control. How many hours, how many days, months, years have you wasted in your life ruminating and lamenting on trivial matters that are outside of your control? Stoic philosophy, that is like the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. And it's so simple. It's almost too simple. It's almost too simply profound because you hear it and you think, okay, obviously. But then you look at your life and think about all the times you worried about things outside of your control. Until you do not worry about things outside of your control, that statement should not just breeze past you as something that you already know and something that you already have accepted and something that you already do. Because I guarantee you, there's a select few humans on this earth who only focus on the things they control. And even then, there probably isn't even one. We all waste time dwelling on things outside of our control. Some people are better than others, and they quickly remind themselves that this is a waste of time. But even for a split second, I'm sure those truly wise, profound people still focus and worry about things outside of their control until their reason can step in. And it happens very quickly. But if you spend a whole day worrying about things outside of your control, you should not brush past me saying that. And I don't think people either understand what are the things that are inside of their control. No one asks why anymore either. No one has a questioning attitude. Everyone wants to seem like they're right and they already know everything. But what is not in one's control? Anything external. What happens to this YouTube video is outside of my control after I post it. It's outside of my control if this YouTube video even gets posted or even gets recorded. Something could have happened. I haven't looked at my screen in 10 minutes or so. Something could have happened. It may not be recording right now. It's not in my control. My heart could stop. you know and you may say you're going to extremes, but that is where you must go to test theories, to truly test what is in your control, you must go to extremes. So the Stoics will also say that external things are neither good nor bad, and external things are not in our control. So anything not in your control is neither good nor bad. That means death. That means loss of limbs. That means death of loved ones. That means everything other than what the Stoics would say good and bad, which is things within your control, which is internal. What happens to me doesn't matter. How I react is what matters, because I have no control over what happens to me. I can say I'm going to go walk over to the table and pick up my water. But if 15 men break down my door as I'm getting up and tackle me, I'm not getting my water. you know? And yes, I know, extremes, but it's the truth. Something that crazy doesn't even have to happen. My heart could just stop. Like that happens to people. I could get up, trip, bang my head, and die. But everything internal is within my control. How I react to situations, what I do inside, that is within my control. How I bear situations, if I don't complain, if I don't whine, these are the things in your control. Virtue and vice are what's in your control in this life. And the virtues are good and the vices are bad. But nobody walks around believing that. And you may disagree with me, but I don't think you could reasonably tell me or rationally debate with me the fact that external things are outside of your control. So even if you don't believe that virtue and vice are the only good things in this world, and even if you don't believe that external things are not good nor bad, I can understand that. But I cannot understand you telling me that worrying about things outside of my control is helpful. It's not. It's a waste of time. The biggest waste of time. The biggest waste of time is worrying. And to add a cherry on top, it's worrying about things outside of your control. Now, like I said at the start of this video, I believe I may have learned most of the things that will change my life for the better. And that doesn't mean I'm not committed to a life of lifelong learning. I committed to that a while ago. I will not get dogmatic, and I will not stop questioning and I will not stop rethinking things. But it's just been time and time again, as of late, hearing profound things and realizing I've either already heard that or I've heard it put a different way. And it's like, sometimes you just got to stop with all the information. You just got to sit there and dwell and digest these things that you've already come to terms with, these things you've already agreed with. Seneca says, freedom from anxiety is the hallmark of a wise man. Freedom from anxiety is the goal. There, what do you have anxiety about that is within your control? Nothing. Nothing. Now, a true stoic may have anxiety about things within his control. And let me explain. Epictetus has a, lecture, if you will, on the paradox of confidence and cautious. And Epictetus says you have to be confident and cautious at the same exact time. And he says these are two opposing agreements. How are you going to be confident, leaning in, metaphorically, and cautious, leaning back? And Epictetus says that you have to be confident in the external world not being within your control. You have to be confident that you have no control over the external world. But you have to be cautious with what is inside, with what is in your control, what is internal, because that's where you may act with vice. That is where you may degrade your soul, where you may degrade yourself and partake in an action that leads you to become a person you don't like. I've also talked on this channel about how to become someone you love. And not many people watch that video, like most of my videos, but that doesn't matter. I think it was because mostly the title, because I was like, you need to love yourself more. And that's kind of a fruity title. And I think people were probably like, oh yeah, like, but it was actually like me telling you that the way to love yourself is to act like the people you admire. So it wasn't like you should just love yourself. Like you shouldn't just love yourself. Like I guess you should, but if you don't, yeah, if you just love yourself, that's fine. All right, that's okay. But if you don't, maybe it's because you act like people you hate. Maybe it's because you do things that disgust you, but you do them behind closed doors. And then you're a hypocrite when you see other people do it or in conversation talking about other people who do it. You say, yeah, that's disgusting. Like, shame on him, so on and so forth. But how you become someone you love is acting in a way that people act that you admire. Say you admire someone's discipline. No, let's not use discipline. Say you admire someone's um, chastity. I think that's I think that's the word for um, being not being sexually active. Let's say. I think that's the right word. If it's not, I mean not being sexually active. Say you admire that in somebody. In this day and age, that's all everybody does, it seems. And say you admire how someone's waiting for marriage, but you go around sleeping with everybody. You're not going to become somebody you admire. You're going to secretly despise yourself. You're going to secretly hate the person you're becoming because you don't admire that vice. You admire the virtue that opposes that vice. So you're living in direct opposition to your true self. And how are you going to become anyone other than someone you hate by doing that? And it's not easy to live in accordance with yourself. I believe your conscience is a compass, and it's trying to guide you to a happy life, fulfilled life with purpose where you love yourself. And when you don't listen to your conscience, you can't get there. And when you don't act like the people you admire, you can't get there either. Those are all guides. Those are all guides. When you see virtue and it lights your soul up, that means that's what you should do. When your conscience tells you to do something and you don't listen to it and you feel horrible about yourself, you should have listened to your conscience. It's not that hard. You know, as a trend of late, I've been rambling, and there's no difference in this video, but I'm going to try to get back to the main point that life is what you deem it to be. It is all opinion. The universe is change. Everything within space and time is dying, is changing. But life, your life, is opinion. It's what you deem it to be. There's been horrible people who have lived happy lives because they deemed their life to be happy. They deemed what they were doing to be good, even though it wasn't. Even though they are looked at as disgusting human beings, they were happy. How is that possible? It's because life is not objective. It's subjective. It is what you deem it to be. Now, next time you're feeling down, you're feeling lonely, whatever it may be, remind yourself you're putting this upon yourself. And that should be empowering. That should not be something that puts you down. That should be something that lifts you up. That should be something that you say, oh yeah, I'm putting this onto me. I don't need to be sad. Life is great. All that matters is what's in my control. This thing that I'm sad about is outside of my control. Perfect. You can rationally get to these areas, but it takes practice and it takes dedication and it takes discipline. Remembering the things that you've already learned. Remembering that things are neither good or bad, but thinking makes them so. Remembering that you have power over your own mind, not the external world. Remembering that the universe is change and life is opinion.